Thanks very much for that introduction, Roger. So as Roger said, we've got the piggery in central Victoria, about an hour north of Bendigo. So currently at 2,000 sows. So today I'll be talking on what we've done on farm to increase production. Briefly go over why our born alive in Australia is so low compared to other countries. And where we should focus to move forward. So in 2006 we built an entire new breeder unit. We went from 800 sows to 2,000 sows at that time. We depopped the old herd and brought in 2,000 clean gilts, of which 1,400 were F1s, 600 purebreds, and the two dam lines, the large white, the landrace, and also had the 80 sire line females. So starting with a brand new herd was obviously something very different and challenging. But once we started having the new gilts coming through, what we're able to do is start replacing a lot of the poor performers with these new gilts coming through. So at the start, we had to remove sows that were only sort of parity 3, parity 4. So you're getting rid of quite young sows, and what we were selecting on is purely on their born alive production figures. So we continued this system until the parity structure was stable, and just playing around with the system, we were happy to keep sows up to parity 14. And it was, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but we just did it because we wanted to see what individual animals can do, and we enjoyed seeing the performance of individual sows. So the effect that it had on the herd, so the likes of, we might start culling out poor performers at parity 3, so you might get rid of a small percentage at parity 3. Obviously then only the good performers make it to parity 4, and then you take out another small percentage of the herd, which then go to parity 5, and you can see the performance of the herd just keeps on going and going up to the likes of parity 7 and parity 8, and you can see the F1s at parity 8 are averaging the 13.7 born alive. So by keeping the best, getting rid of the worst, you can have a big influence on the production of your herd. So this was the story up till this is when we started in 2007, and obviously the born alive very low at this point, and then it becomes stable here, and then from here up to here we've gone from 11.8 up to 12.6 in a 2-year period, and that's, I think, purely from what we were doing, keeping the best, getting rid of the worst. So basically, that's how we increased our born life by 0.8 of a piglet over 2 years. But what I'll go into more detail into what actually happened at the same time during that period, and go into why it's not all about born alive. You've got to keep them alive as well. So this is a graph over the same time period, and you can see when the parity 2, parity 3 coming through, they weaned particularly well. But then after that, the pigs wean really didn't move at all. It was stuck on about 10.4. So even though our born alive was heading in that direction, our piglets weaned weren't really moving at all. So the reason for this, we believed we had a problem with the piglet weights. We only thought because we weren't measuring. So what we started doing in 2010 is weighing the litters at birth, and to see where we were at. And at the same time, we started weighing on our purebred litters. Started weighing at 14 days as well, just as an indication of mothering ability. So when we started measuring all these new things, so the litter weights and then the 14-day weights, we had to come up with a way of choosing the worst performers. So on farm we set up an index. So this is 1 week's worth of sows in week 12, 2012. So you can see here, this is the list of sows that we had for the week, the large white sows. You've got their parity here, and then all their results from then on. So we've got the average born alive, their entire litter weight, which is just the weight of all the piglets born alive, and then the piglet weight as a calculation, and that's the average piglet weight. It's not, we don't measure individual piglets within a litter, we just measure the whole litter and take the average. And then you got the 14-day weight, and we also use the average number weaned as a performance indicator as well. So we put this all in an index, and it spits out the best and worst sows for us. So you can see down the bottom, we've got 2 sows, parity 2, so only very young, and you can see they're averaging 13.5 and 13. So previously these two would have been definitely in, and they would have stayed in the herd for a long time. But you can now see that now that we've got the index, they've ended up on the bottom of the list because of these other performance indicators. You can see that the entire litter weight for this, the second one here is 14.2, which only gives an average piglet weight of 1.05. Like they're mice that are coming out, and they're not valuable. So these two sows that would have made it before, we got rid of them because they're just not performing how we want them to. So after a couple of years of recording our litter weights, this is what we come up with. So this is a 2-year period, and the weights over time. So if you look at the blue line for starters, you can see the spike here in about week 26, and again the following year a spike around the middle of the year in week 26. So you can see the piglet mortalities had a trend of increasing in the winter and decreasing in the summer. So, and what this graph is 1 is the average. When it goes above 1, it's above average. If it goes below 1, it's below average. And then when we match it up with the average litter weight, you can see that during these times of high piglet mortalities, the litter weights are right down. And then at the other end, when the mortalities are right down in the summer, that we're having very big piglets. So it confirmed our suspicion that the smaller piglets were causing a higher piglet mortality. So back in 2010 we set a target, and we wanted to wean, in 4 years' time we wanted to be weaning 11 pigs per sow. And so 4 years down the track, in the 14-15 year, we managed to hit target, and we actually weaned 11.2 pigs for that the 12-month period, which is between these two black lines here. So we're very happy with that, and now we've set new targets for the herd, and I think we should be able to increase by about 1 piglet every 10 years. So by 2024, 2025, we're hoping to be weaning 12 pigs weaned per sow, but we'll see how that goes. And that's probably without changing too much. We might fine-tune a couple of things, but that's just using the current system that we've got. Along the way, the genetics have certainly helped us out. They've been a great help. So what they did is also targeted piglet weight for our herd. And we've seen progress with that as well. Obviously, that takes a lot longer to show up in your herd. You're sort of waiting 4 or 5 or 6 years for the genetics to start flowing through. And now, we catch up once a year with our genetics company, talk about where we're at and where we want to go. So they target our GGP, so the top of our herd, and they also send us a dog list, which is the bottom percentage of our herd. So we also cull out sows based on their EBVs as well as their phenotypic performance. So other stuff about our piggery, and I think this is fairly important when we look at production. And I think the top 3 points here are probably the reason why we had good performance in the start from the start. Because back when we started off with a born alive of 11.8, which is a pretty good starting point. And I think these are the reasons for it. We've got All of our sows are still in stalls. We've got sheds going up at the moment to go away from that, but they're all still in stalls at the moment. But they're in big stalls, so they're 720 mil wide, which is much bigger than Coda Practice. And I think this is a huge advantage, particularly in summer. I think the sows can expel their heat a lot easier with the bigger stalls, just purely because they're more spread out. But I think it's also a disadvantage in the winter for us, because they're spread out. They don't get that huddling effect, and I think that could be a lot of the reason why we see such a fluctuation with our piglet weights could be for that reason as well. So a couple of other points here. We do feed our dry sows a liquid fed at a 1:8 mixing ratio. So it means if they're getting 2 kilograms of dry matter, they're getting 16 litres of water. So it's a guaranteed intake of water during gestation, which could be a big advantage as well. And all the dry sows have individual drippers. So I think, those three are particularly important, and I think, as I said, could be the number one reason why we had fairly good performance from the start. And a few other points. Lac sows are liquid fed. Not sure if that's a huge advantage or not. And we haven't suffered from summer infertility in born alive or conception rate, but we have had reduced cycling in late summer, and particularly with the gilts. But it's been something that we've been working on and managed over the years. And the previous year just gone, we managed to overmate rather than undermate. So we were very happy with that. And it's using some of the things that Mark pointed out, is in making sure you got the gilts there to mate. Right, so that's enough about our piggery. We'll talk about the Australian industry and where we're at. So this is the born alive stats for Australia over the last 7 years of data. So we started off just below 10.6, and now we're up around 11.2. So it's a fairly low base, but I think if you look at the trend, it's actually trending reasonably well. So we're increasing at a rate of about 1 piglet every 11 years, which it's not too bad, but the geneticists tell me that we should be, or it's possible probably to drive born alive by about 1 piglet every 5 or 6 years. But if you add in other things that you want to put emphasis on, like piglet weight or other things, you're probably looking at more like 1 piglet every 8 years or something like that. So that's where we should be aiming. We should be aiming at improving by 1 piglet every 8 years, probably at a minimum. So what are the possible restraints for the Australian pig industry? I think it could be any of 1,000 different things that affect born alive in Australia. But I've chosen 2 that I think separate us from the rest of the world. And these 2 things, I think, the genetics that we've got, our genetics aren't as good as the rest of the world, and it's definitely the case. And the other thing is the environment that we have, I think, or particularly when you compare against the likes of Europe in their environment, we've got a much more extreme environment than what they've got. So I'm going to be concentrating on environment, but I will comment on genetics before I go to that. I think if we try and work with what we've got within Australia, I think we should be challenging the genetics companies. We should be asking where we're at, what should we be getting, and what gains should we be expecting over the next 5-10 years. And if we're not meeting that, you got to look at the reasons why we're not reaching those goals. And I think the number one reason why we're not in Australia is the environment that we put the pigs in. So the environment, or the accommodation, probably more so, I believe is the number one limiting factor of breeding productivity in Australia. And these are my thoughts, and I've spoken to a lot of people, I guess, over the last 6 months. So my views, there's going to be a lot of different views out there, but this is where I think the Australian industry's at. And as I said before, I think we've got one of the most extreme climates on the planet, and we need to recognise this and build accommodation or fix the accommodation appropriately. And just a comment that we also have extreme variation. So at home in central Victoria, you might get 5 degrees in the morning, 28 degrees in the afternoon. The pigs just can't adapt to that. So this is a heat index. So what a heat index does is takes humidity and temperature, and it says what impact does this have on a particular species. So there's one of these for people, there's one for cattle, and this one's for pigs, obviously. So the effect of humidity and temperature on a pig. So a pig cools itself by breathing. They breathe in the air. If it's in a dry heat, the moisture gets added to the air, which cools the air, which then cools the sow. In humid weather, when the sow breathes in, the air's already got moisture to it, so it's lost the ability to absorb any more moisture, so it's lessened that cooling effect. So that's what this index does, is expresses what's happening with the pig. And it's us as people humidity has a bigger impact on people than it does on pigs, because we can sweat, so in the dry heat we have a really good way of cooling ourselves, but in the humidity we lose that evaporation, or the ability to evaporate the moisture off our skin. So for people this would be a little bit steeper. So what I've done here is taken Swan Hill, which is close to home, and then I've picked 3 locations in Queensland, because when I think of challenging area, I think of Queensland. So I've got 3 areas in Queensland: Toowoomba, Dalby, and then further north in Emerald. And from looking at the map, there's not too many piggeries north of Emerald. And I've put a spot here. So these are the average summer, or the summer averages, and this is a temperature and humidity taken at 3 p.m. each day. So you can see Swan Hill, we average 31, and then you got the Toowoomba quite mild back here, but obviously high humidity. And then I've also put on the map these are the worst summer days from the most recent summer that we've had. And I guess what we need to do is look at getting these sows. We can't have them feeling the temperature of what it is on the day. We need to look at getting them back into this blue and green zone. And the longer the sows spend in this area, obviously the worse performance that you're going to get out of the sows. So I've looked at evaporative cooling and what impact that can have on the sows. So in the dry heat, here at 20% humidity, we can get a temperature drop of 10 degrees, and we can also get a wind chill effect of 4 degrees. So we can get a total temperature drop, or what the sows are feeling, of 14 degrees down where we are in a dry heat in Victoria. Up here in Queensland, where you have 70% humidity, we can only get a 4 degree drop with evaporative cooling, but you also get the 4 degree wind chill effect. So you're still getting 8 degrees drop here up in Queensland when it's 70% humidity, which is substantial. I thought when I first went into this, because I'd always heard evaporative cooling is no good in Queensland, and it's sort of true, but when you add in the wind chill effect as well, I think 8 degrees is still substantial. So what I've done is taken the same heat index, and for us in Swan Hill we can get the full 14 degrees effect. So we can get on our average summer day, we can get back to this green zone. But you can see in Toowoomba, we're at high humidity, they can only get about 9 degree drop, so which still gets them back into the green zone. So this is with probably some of the best cooling you can get for the sows. I think if we've got dry sow accommodation or lax sow accommodation that's only just got a fan running, a small fan running, I think you might get a 2 degree drop with a fan running, a bit of air going over them. If you're, I think, any one of these and only getting a 2 degree drop, you're not getting to the right zone. And you've got to expect performance a drop when that's the case. And this is just a picture of the worst days last summer, and what we need to do to be able to get it as far back to this towards the green area as we can. And you can imagine these days when if you only got a fan running in a shed, you're obviously going to see losses in this example. And I think if we're seeing sow losses due to heat, I think we're a long way from where we need to be. So in conclusion, I think Australia-wide, actually, I think it's probably not Australia-wide, but majority of Australia. I think there's places in Australia where it's not as important, like close to home in the Western Districts of Victoria, where it's cool most of the year. They don't get the hot summer days like we do. So probably not as important. But I think for the majority of Australia, we need to improve the environment for our pigs. Mainly looking at the temperature, the hygiene and the air quality. And this can be done with new or old facilities. So the example I was showing would have been in new facilities where you got tunnel ventilation and you got the bells and whistles, but you can also do it in old facilities as well. You can set up stir fans, you can put in foggers. There's different things that you can do to improve the environment for your pigs. And the last note is now is absolutely the time to do it. When better than right now. When the prices are good, now's the time to put a bit of money in there and make sure when the prices do go back down, and it's going to happen, make sure you're in a position to get through it. Thank you.
Thank you.